Good day everyone, Marvel Master here with a video covering the remaining 3 projects in my Marvel Movie Universe Act 2, or Act 2 of the MMU for short. In this series I'm going over how I would make a Marvel Cinematic Universe, and have been covering my movie ideas in groups of 2 or 3. This video is slightly different, as the biggest connection between the movies is that the heroes face off against some of their most well-known foes for the first time, but the real reason I'm grouping them together is that they complete Act 2 of the MMU. Like my X-Men trilogy video, this will be entirely focused on Act 2, but if you want to learn about Act 1, I would recommend watching my Fantastic Four, Spiderman and Invaders video, or staying till the end of this video for a special announcement. Whatever the case, if you do enjoy this video or any of the videos on this channel, a like, comment and or subscribe would be greatly appreciated, as I hope to one day pass 1000 subscribers, though admittedly at the time of writing this, my other channel will probably reach that goal first, whenever that may be. But on with the video. The first movie I'll be telling you about is Fantastic Four: Will of Doom. It would pick up with a family dinner in the Baxter building, and there's a panic as Franklin Richards has lost his pacifier. The table would be shaking as Franklin cries and Sue tries to calm him. Herbie would hold up the pacifier after finding it in a drawer. Reed would stretch to grab it and would put it into Franklin's mouth, and this would calm the toddler instantly. We would later see Sue leaving Franklin's room after settling him down, and she would meet Reed in the hallway. "We need a holiday," Reed says. "From Franklin? From all of this. I wouldn't be comfortable leaving him alone." "He wouldn't be alone. He'd be with a nanny." "You know what I mean. It would only be for a weekend. He's old enough. 9 months. And if we decided not to send Ben and Johnny off somewhere on their own holidays, they could maybe look after him with Alicia." Sue would give a look to Reed. "You're right, that's maybe not the best idea." Sue would then consider something. "Johnny and I had a nanny when we were growing up, and we weren't always the easiest children to deal with. She was ancient back then, but didn't seem old in a way. And though I doubt it, I'll see if she's still in the business." "That's great," Reed would reply. "We can look at flights tomorrow." The next thing we would see would be the Fantastic Four with loads of suitcases ready to leave the Baxter building. Sue would be cradling Franklin, and Alicia would be standing with Ben. "Are you sure you don't come?" he would ask. "I'm sure," she would reply. "And it would be good for Franklin to have someone he knows who can pop in." Herbie would beep, and he'll have Herbie, of course. There'd be a knock at the door, and Reed would open it to reveal a wizened old lady with a carpet bag in one hand and a cat carrier in the other. "Agatha," Johnny would say with delight. "I didn't know you're still alive." He would then go red, but Agatha would just smile. "Good to see you too, Jonathan." She would set down her bags. "And Susan, this must be your boy." "Yes, Agatha." "Miss Harkness," Reed would begin to say. "Don't worry, Mr. Richards," she would say. "I'll have everything under control. Susan has given me the boy's schedule, and I have prepared some activities for us to get up to." "Activities?" "Building blocks and such. Now go, you don't want to miss your flight." The next thing we would see would be the Fantastic Four all getting onto a plane, with the Thing taking up 2 seats and needing legroom. There would be some talk about them taking the same plane, and then getting onto different ones to go to different places afterwards. Later on in the journey, Reed would say that they should have landed by now. He would go to talk to a flight attendant, who would tell him to sit down due to upcoming turbulence, and he would comply. The plane would start to descend and the windows would all slam shut as emergency lighting came on. The plane would then land and everyone would go quiet. "Where are we?" Reed would ask, getting to his feet, and the heads of all the flight attendants and passengers would swivel to face him, their eyes glowing green. There would be a hiss as the door opened, and a man entered the plane. The other Fantastic Four members would shoot to their feet, and Johnny's hands would ignite, causing alarms to blare. "Victor," Reed would hiss. "Hello, Reed," Dr. Doom would reply. He would explain that he wanted to see them to congratulate them on the wedding and the baby, and there'd be some back and forth, but he would say that he wasn't there to harm them. Doom would lead them out of the plane, and it would turn out they are now in Latveria, just outside the castle of Doomstadt. Just to say, the Fantastic Four would all be in casual clothes, but I'll be showing them in costumes just because it's easier. Victor Von Doom would say that they all have rooms prepared for them, but the Four would say that they are not going anywhere, until he tells them why he really has them there. A group of Doombots would escort Doom and the Four to his throne room, and he'd sit in his throne and explain that he's been monitoring them, and that he was especially interested in what they had discovered about the negative zone. He would even congratulate Reed on discovering it by himself, but would then claim that he knew of its existence even before that, and just hadn't managed to access it. Something in Sue's mind would then click. He wants Franklin, she would say, and would create force fields in front of each of her hands ready to attack. The rest of the Four would follow suit. You were always the smart one, Susan, Victor would say, not rising from his throne. What do you want with my nephew? Johnny would ask. Dr. Doom would say that the kind of energy signatures he is emitting are astounding, and that exposure to the negative zone must have increased his powers tenfold. The Four would rush to attack Doom, but he would use a spell and a portal would open up and would pull the members in before disappearing. The portal would then drop them in a quiet American town. It would be entirely abandoned, and they would discover that there is a force field around the town, and that it seems to be some sort of pocket dimension, or at least that's the best theory Reed can come up with. Around then, a green figure would appear to them and would introduce himself as the Impossible Man. His body would display cartoon physics, stretching into unnatural shapes, kind of similar to the mask in, well, The Mask. The Fantastic Four would spend a large chunk of the movie in this town, which we would learn is called Pleasant Hill, and would also learn that the Impossible Man is a Popunian from the planet Pop-Up, who has various shapeshifting and power-copying abilities. On his journey through the cosmos, he arrived in Latveria and was captured by Doom to study and keep contained. Throughout the movie, he would toy with the Fantastic Four, and would play many pranks on them, as that's what he enjoys doing. We would also learn that he could technically leave at any time, but that he likes it in Pleasant Hill, due to it allowing him to learn about Earth culture, and Doom has encouraged him to stay there by manipulating the energies of Pleasant Hill, so that they boost Impossible Man's powers while he's in that dimension. He would agree to free the Fantastic Four if they managed to defeat him, and would want them to be entertaining, and they would manage to do this, so he would warp all of them to the Baxter Building. Going back a bit, Dr. Doom would have arrived at the Baxter Building with some Doombots a short while before this. We would see Agatha playing with Franklin, before going to answer the door and finding Dr. Doom standing there. When the Fantastic Four arrived, they'd find Agatha and Doom engaged in a magic battle, while Franklin played calmly in the background with Ebony, Agatha's cat. The Fantastic Four would join in on the battle, as it is clear Agatha is starting to weaken. Despite all of them working together, Doom is still beating them until Human Torch convinces Impossible Man what great fun it would be to have Dr. Doom in Pleasant Hill with him. Impossible Man would then basically suck Dr. Doom into Pleasant Hill, and would follow him in, telling Doom that they are going to have so much fun. The Fantastic Four would thank Agatha, and it would be revealed that they had no idea that she was magical. She would say that it's no problem, but when Sue offered her just a full-time position, she would decline the offer. And the movie would end with another family dinner. The Fantastic Four won't show up again for a very long time, so the post-credits scene would focus on Agatha returning to a cottage in the woods. After setting down her bags and letting Ebony out, she would use magic to open a large chest with several locks, only to find, in horror, that it is empty. This won't be picked up on for a while, until Act 4 actually, but you'll find out what was stolen then. Will of Doom would be the third movie of Act 2, and the next movie I'll be telling you about is the fifth movie, and that is Spider-Man Last Stand. The last time we saw Peter, he was dating Gwen Stacy during Annihilus' invasion of New York, and teamed up with the Fantastic Four to save the city. So far in his career, he has faced multiple of his major villains, with it culminating in him fighting the Sinister Six, and defeating their leader Dr. Octopus, but not before the tentacled foe could jab Norman Osborn with a suspicious formula. We would establish that Gwen knows Peter's Spider-Man and Aunt May doesn't, and all of that stuff at the start, before Peter goes into the Daily Bugle to hand in some photos of Spider-Man to J. Jonah Jameson. At this point, we would focus on a van parked on the street with a tall man in a cowboy hat and a short man in a fancy suit, sitting in the front and doing a bit of talking about the boss telling them to make a scene so that Spider-Man would show up, and one of them calls something to someone in the back. We would then go inside the Bugle and see Peter haggling with J. Jonah Jameson, only for Robbie Robertson to take Peter's side. Then there would be pandemonium as the Bugle is attacked by the three men from the van. They would say that they are called the Enforcers, and their group consists of the lasso-wielding Montana, the strong and brutish Ox, and the agile Fancy Dan. They would start to cause a ruckus, and in the chaos, Peter would slip away and get changed, returning as Spider-Man to take on the Enforcers. He would take them down fairly easily, with Jonah calling him a menace and blaming him for the attack. Spider-Man would web up the criminals and hang them under a lamppost for the police to find them, before web swinging, only for us to get an over-the-shoulder shot of someone with a purple hat and green ear, watching all of this with binoculars. He would cackle and say that worse is yet to come, Peter Parker, before we went to the next scene. Peter would actually be balancing his dual life, but we would learn that he's been unable to find Dr. Octopus, who got away at the end of the last movie. Peter would be invited to dinner at Oscorp at one point, as while he's no longer an intern there, he's on good terms with the Osborns, and he's become good friends with Harry, plus Norman knows about his identity, though Peter doesn't know this. Norman would say that it's lucky that Spider-Man was there to save the day, before suggesting that maybe Dr. Octopus could be behind it. The next day, Gwen Stacy would be kidnapped off the street, but once again we would not get a proper look at the villain. Peter Parker would rush to the police station to see Captain George Stacy to ask what had happened. He would also meet a tough detective by the name of Gene DeWolf, who would want to ask him about the attack on the Bugle due to his association with it, but Stacy would tell her to get in touch with him later, before telling Peter that they don't know who's behind it. As Peter was leaving the station, distracted due to his worry about Gwen, someone would swoop down towards him and plow into him. He would hang on with dear life as he's carried up into the sky, dangling from the glider of the main villain of this movie, who you will not be surprised at all to learn is the Rhino. Just kidding, it's Green Goblin. He would tell Peter that his girlfriend is currently stuck on the George Washington Bridge, and that he will kill her unless Spider-Man goes to save her. He would then whip the glider around, sending Peter tumbling down to Earth. Luckily, he would have his web shooters on under his sleeves, and would be able to make a makeshift web parachute to slow his fall, before suiting up and heading to the bridge as fast as he could. He would find Green Goblin, holding Gwen Stacy at the edge, and would swing to land on the top of the bridge, a few meters away from them. Spider-Man would ask Green Goblin why he's doing everything, and Goblin would say that it's because he wants to. Spider-Man would take a step forward, but Green Goblin would take a pumpkin bomb out of his pocket and click it to arm it. He would then throw the screaming and struggling Gwen off the side and chuck the bomb at Peter. Spider-Man would catch the bomb in his webs and swing it back at Goblin, sending him flying off the edge to the side, as Spider-Man runs to the edge and sends a web strand at the still falling Gwen. Their eyes would meet as his strand hits her chest and yanks her to a stop, her neck snapping from the force. Spider-Man would begin to shout and sob as he slowly pulls her up towards him, but he'd hear a cackle and turn to see Goblin flying at him on his glider, having summoned it back to catch him as he was blasted off. Goblin would throw another pumpkin bomb, and this one would hit its target, exploding and sending Peter flying into the river. "Goodbye, Spider-Man," Goblin would call as Spider-Man smashes into the surface and falls unconscious. The next we see of Spider-Man would be him being pulled out of the river by an unseen figure and dragged into a place for him to wake up on a steel table in a lab with gauze over his injuries, but his mask still on. "Don't exert yourself," a voice would say, and Spider-Man would turn to see Dr. Octopus watching him from the doorway. "Why?" Spider-Man would croak. "Because your skin took great amounts of damage, though I'm guessing that's not what you mean." Dr. Octopus would go on to explain that he saved Spider-Man for 2 reasons. One, that if anyone is going to defeat Spider-Man once and for all, it will be him. And 2, that he is partially responsible for what had happened. He would also say that he doesn't care who's under a mask, but that the Green Goblin does. Spider-Man would ask how he's responsible, and Otto would explain that the Green Goblin is Norman Osborn, and that he's acting the way he is due to Otto injecting him with a serum to bring out the worst parts of him in hopes that it would drive him mad, when instead it created a monster. He would also explain that since Spider-Man was there when he was injected, and that the injection would have caused overstimulation and fear in Norman's brain to begin with, he would have negative perceptions of anyone around, but only if there was some base, deep desire beneath it, such as a desire for power or simple arachnophobia. Peter would realize that Green Goblin would be going after Aunt May next, so would say that he had to leave. Dr. Octopus would give Spider-Man an injection to temporarily give him a strength boost so he can keep going and defeat the Goblin, but would warn Spider-Man that he would not help him a second time. The final fight between Green Goblin and Spider-Man would take place in the Our Lady of Saints Church, where Aunt May has gone to pray. Eddie Brock would also be there, and during the fight would take some pictures of Spider-Man and Green Goblin. Peter would defeat an unmasked Green Goblin before unleashing his rage into him, with Goblin laughing all the way. Spider-Man would only stop when Captain Stacy, Jean DeWolf, and some other cops arrive and take Norman away. As you'll find out, Jean DeWolf has a very similar encounter later on. Or, actually, earlier. No, it probably would be later on, but you'll see what I mean later. The movie would end with Gwen Stacy's funeral, and later that evening, Peter would take his Spider-Man costume, go into an alley, and hurl it into a bin, leaving the movie's final shot to be the famous Spider-Man No More one. Well, I say final, but there's also the post-credit scene, which would open up on the alleyway shortly after Peter had left, and we would see an obscured figure taking the costume out of the bin and walking off into the rain. There is one last movie to cover, and that is Daredevil, Devil of Hell's Kitchen. If you recall from my Fantastic Four video, Fantastic Four Annihilation, the movie saw New York being invaded by an army of bugs, as I also mentioned at the start of the Spider-Man section. This movie would start with a scene during that invasion, seeing a woman running down an alley while being chased by one of these bugs. It's about to catch her when a man in a black mask with bandages wrapped around his hands leaps onto its back and starts to pummel his fists into it. The woman thanks him after he basically knocks out the bug and asks for his name, but the man does not respond. There is a large buzzing and the woman looks up to see an army of bugs flying overhead, being drawn away like a moth to a flame, and when she looks down, the man is gone. Cut to title card. We would open up a few months later with Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson at their law firm, with Foggy making a joke about the electricity bill or something. The phone would ring, and Foggy would pick it up before listening and thanking the person on the other side. When he put it down, he would tell Matt that they had a potential client and the two would head to the police station. There they would meet Jean DeWolf, who has just brought in a woman who was found with the dead body of one of her co-workers. The woman is Karen Page, and she is also the woman from the prologue. She would say that she was innocent and that she had found incriminating evidence about her company, Union Allied, and had gone to Daniel for help, only for them to get drunk and her to wake up with him dead beside her, and the files gone. If you didn't know, this takes quite a lot of aspects from Season 1 of Daredevil, and a few from Season 3 as well. The rest of the movie would see Matt and Foggy investigating into Union Allied, with Matt as Daredevil in a proper suit doing some violent investigating of his own, slowly uncovering a massive conspiracy. A man named Wesley would go to a prison to talk to a killer named Lester Poindexter, and would bail him out before taking him to a place with a large amount of weapons and a costume, including a helmet with a bullseye on it. He would tell him that he has been hired to take down Daredevil, but also that there's something else he needs to do first. During this conversation, Wesley would allude to the fact that he is working for someone higher up. Bullseye would kidnap Karen and bring her to Wesley, and around this time, Daredevil would first hear the name Wilson Fisk, as well as what he's more well known as in the criminal underworld, Kingpin. He would also find out that his father, battling Jack Murdock, died because he refused to throw a fight that Kingpin wanted him to. We would then see Kingpin for the first time, meeting up with two brothers who head the Russian mob, and this meeting would be happening by the docks. Kingpin would be alone, but the brothers would be backed up by a group of thugs. Kingpin would tell the brothers how he's very disappointed in them, and they would threaten him, only for him to give a nod, and the group of thugs would turn on the brothers and open fire. One would be gunned down, but the other would get away and would scramble through the docks before eventually reaching a car. Kingpin would appear, and then kill him much in the same way as in Daredevil Season 1, though it'd be the other brother this time. Also, this would probably be the first R-rated project in the MMU. The pre-climax of the movie would see Daredevil and Bullseye fight for the first and last time of this movie, ending with Daredevil essentially hurling Bullseye off a roof and seemingly killing him before screaming out in rage. Wesley would be interrogating Karen and trying to get her to confess what she knows, so that he can deal with it without worrying Kingpin, but she had managed to escape and shoot Wesley multiple times in the chest, killing him. Matt would go to a church to pray for forgiveness for what he has done, but also what he is about to do, before heading to Kingpin's penthouse with a plan to kill him. Kingpin would have been trying to contact Wesley with no response, so would also be furious when Matt arrived, and the two would have a knockdown drag-out fight that ended with Daredevil getting the upper hand and being about to kill Kingpin, only for his phone to ring. He would flash back to a moment in his childhood, with his dad talking to him about fighting, and saying that sometimes winning isn't always the right thing to do, before his phone rang and he answered the call that sealed his fate. Matt's phone would be lying on the ground nearby, and he would look over to see Karen's profile picture. He would leave Kingpin bloody and bruised on the floor of his living room, just as Jean DeWolf arrived, having been tipped off by Foggy, who had found some of Matt's notes, and this is what I meant by Jean DeWolf having two very similar scenarios. The movie would end with Fisk going to prison, and Karen's name being cleared by Nelson and Murdock, with her agreeing to become their secretary. There would be a post-credit scene, and this would see surgeons working on a still-alive Poindexter, saying that his spine's broken, and they'll need something strong to reinforce it. And one would say that they've heard rumours of a new metal named adamantium, and that they might be able to pull some strings to get some. Bullseye's eyes would open and would cut to black. This has probably been my second favourite video to make after the Spider-Man one, and I'm pleased to say that I have big plans for the future. My next video after this will be a timeline and summary video of the first two acts, and I'm planning on doing one of those after every few acts. Act 3 will see the return of Captain America to the present, with its various ramifications, as well as the fallout of X-Men Imperium, which saw Jean become the Phoenix, and a bit of Black Goo arrive on Earth. Between the summary video and first Act 3 video, I'm thinking of starting a side project, looking at how I would combine the Batman and Spider-Man mythoses into one. Like the timeline videos, these videos will be interspersed across my releases, with the MMU being my main focus. But if that interests you, please tell me in the comments below. My subscriber goal for this channel is to reach 100 subscribers by the end of the year, so a like, subscribe and a hype would all be greatly appreciated. Have a good day and ta-ta.